Imagine this: no maps, no compass, no GPS, no roads, not even the concept of the world as we know it. In your hands, you have exactly one thing: a sharpened stone tool and the instinct to survive. And ahead of you, endless unknown, dark forests, icy mountains, vast oceans. And yet, roughly 70,000 years ago, a small band of humans walked out of the warm savannas of Africa and set out to reach every corner of the planet, even the desert islands of Australia and the frozen north of the Americas. How did they do it? No ships, no maps, not even writing. How did humanity cross an entire planet? Today, that's exactly what we're diving into. And trust me, the answer is more astonishing than you'd think. Our story begins in East Africa. According to scientific evidence, Homo sapiens, our species, first emerged here roughly 300,000 years ago. But for a long time, humans didn't venture beyond Africa. Why? Because the Sahara, the largest hot desert on Earth, acted as a natural wall keeping people in. But climate wasn't static. Every few tens of thousands of years, the Earth's tilt and orbit around the sun shifts slightly. And that changes Africa's climate too. The desert would periodically turn into green savanna, with rivers and lakes appearing where there had been sand. It was during these green windows that ancient hunter-gatherers, following herds of animals, gradually moved north, crossing the Sinai Peninsula into what is now the Middle East. This wasn't some grand expedition. It was daily survival, finding food today, finding water tomorrow. But each generation pushed a few kilometers further than their parents had, and over hundreds of thousands of years, those small steps added up to crossing entire continents. Now for the most fascinating question. How did people cross the vast stretches of Asia and eventually reach India, Southeast Asia, and even Australia? Scientists call this the coastal migration theory. The logic is simple. Coastlines have always offered fresh water, fish, shellfish, and shelter, a far more reliable path to survival than trekking through unpredictable inland terrain. People moved along the shores of the Red Sea, across the Arabian Peninsula, and eastward along the coasts of the Indian Ocean. This was a slow migration, unfolding over thousands of years, generation after generation. And here's the astonishing part. By roughly 65,000 years ago, humans had already reached Australia. But Australia was never connected to Asia by land. That means ancient people had to cross open water. Evidence suggests they used simple rafts or reed boats to cross stretches of open sea, in some places up to 90 kilometers wide. That's a daunting distance even today. And without maps or a compass, it's almost unimaginable courage. Let's fast forward now to roughly 20,000 to 25,000 years ago, the peak of the last ice age. At this point, huge portions of the Earth were locked in ice. But for humans, this wasn't a barrier. It was an opportunity. Why? Because massive glaciers had absorbed so much of the ocean's water that sea levels dropped by as much as 100 to 120 meters below today's levels. This exposed enormous stretches of land now hidden beneath the sea. The most famous example is Beringia, a vast land bridge that once existed where the Bering Strait is today. This bridge connected Siberia to Alaska, and people crossed it, following mammoths, bison, and other large game, moving from Asia into North America. This was one of the greatest migrations ever made on foot. These people had no idea they were discovering America. They were simply chasing food and warmer ground, one day at a time. Over time, their descendants spread across North and South America. eventually reaching Patagonia, the southernmost tip of the continent, thousands of years later. Now for the most intriguing question of all. With no maps, no writing, no compass, how did they navigate? The answer lies in the astonishing observational power of the human mind. First, the stars. Ancient people watched the night sky and memorized the movement of constellations. Seafaring peoples in particular, like the Polynesians of the Pacific, could navigate thousands of kilometers of open ocean with pinpoint accuracy, using nothing but the stars. Second, natural signs. The flight patterns of birds, the movement of ocean swells, the shapes of clouds, even shifts in watercolor. All of these served as a kind of living map for ancient navigators. Third, oral memory. Knowledge was passed down through generations via songs, myths, and stories. The famous songlines of Australian Aboriginal peoples are a striking example. An oral map system stretching across an entire continent, preserved for tens of thousands of years, used to locate water sources and safe travel routes. This was a remarkable intellectual achievement for a civilization that had no writing at all. So why do these ancient journeys matter to us today? Because they explain why we find humans in literally every corner of the earth. From the icy deserts of the Arctic, to the dense jungles of the Amazon, to the towering peaks of the Himalayas, to the tiniest islands scattered across the Pacific. This was the greatest human project ever undertaken, accomplished with no technology at all, just observation, cooperation, and sheer will to survive. It took thousands of years, and no one along the way thought, "I am discovering the world." They were simply fighting to live. And yet, because of those brave, relentless footsteps, the ancestors of today's 8 billion people turned this entire planet into home. So next time you're sitting on a plane crossing an ocean in a matter of hours, remember this. Your ancestors crossed that same distance with no map, no compass, not even shoes, over countless generations, trusting nothing but the stars and their own instincts. They handed this planet down to us, and it's fair to say this is one of the greatest adventures in all of human history. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe, because next time we're uncovering another astonishing piece of history. Voice fades out. Video ends.